Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. And we are talking today about this little gem, Tchaikovsky and Sibelius violin concertos with David Oistrakh and Eugene Ormandy. I mean, this is one of those discs that absolutely defines the term class act. Every bit of it is a class act. You have Oistrakh at his peak, at his best, and you have Ormandy and Philadelphia at their best, doing repertoire that they really owned. Really phenomenal performances. You know, Oistrakh's advocacy of the Sibelius concerto, particularly, which he played throughout his life and recorded a couple of times, was really important in continuing the work of establishing the piece as a repertory standard, because he was playing it back in like the 50s and the 40s when fewer people did. It's important to remember that the Sibelius concerto was not very popular until Heifetz got his hands on it, of course, with Thomas Beecham, and made a recording of it. And from there, it sort of took off. But after Sibelius wrote it, most violinists were loath to play it. First of all, it's extremely technically difficult. And second of all, it sounds more like Sibelius than a violin concerto, which is a good thing. It has a very particular atmosphere and sonority, which makes it suitable to violinists who wish to enter into that particular atmosphere and sonority. But it took them a while to figure out that they ought to do it. And it was only when great violinists like Oistrakh and Heifetz got their hands on the Sibelius that it began to become a repertory staple. And this is Oistrakh's classic performance of it, at least in stereo. And oh my, it is so beautiful. It's romantic. It's not, today people have a tendency to play things in a leaner and less voluptuous way. But Sibelius was a voluptuary. He really was. He liked fine cigars and fine wine and women and all those good things. And he was a virtuoso violinist himself at one point in his early career. And so he really knew what he was doing when he wrote for the violin. And he wanted that sonority. He wanted that sound. And boy, do they deliver it in spades. Now, the Tchaikovsky, of course, is Richter. I just was talking about Richter. Was Oistrakh's meat and potato stuff. It really was. It was phenomenally, quintessentially Russian. It was also Ormandy's meat and potato stuff. Tchaikovsky generally is what these people felt they were born to play. And Oistrakh is passionate and exciting and tonally sumptuous. So many of today's violinists just don't have that gorgeous, rich, burnished tone. Victoria Molova does. That's why her Tchaikovsky is so great too. But essentially, and then of course there's the shamelessly romantic Ormandy and Philly, who provide an accompaniment that fits Oistrakh's approach like a hand in a glove. And between the two of them, you have two of the most yummy violin concerto performances on disc. They are simply marvelous. This is the Japanese Sony release, I think. Is it? No, maybe not. It looks like it looks fairly normal. No, it's the Sony Classical Originals. I don't even know what line this is anymore. At one point or another, there were so many different budget lines coming out in so many different countries, each with their own name. But I don't know. Maybe it's still around. If it is, you really ought to listen to it. It's definitely one of my favorite violin concerto recordings. The two pieces are very well contrasted, but in these interpretations, that big-boned romantic approach is the common denominator, and it's just incredibly compelling. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.